Today we have someone who is an expert in foreplay, Zachary Murray. And no, it is not what you're thinking. Foreplay is actually a really incredible platform that gives you the ability to save viral ads, build creator briefs, and even 10x your ad performance. Now, I am a huge fan myself, and I'm really glad to have Zach with me here today. Thank you for being here, Zach.
Thank you for having me. I know we've been chatting on LinkedIn for a while now. And so yeah, I appreciate you having me and I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. So it would be amazing if you could tell us a little bit more about your journey and background and how you started foreplay.
Yeah, for sure. So we started foreplay around 27 months ago now is when we sort of launched the actual full public product. Before that, I was running a D2C brand. It was where I kind of got introduced to the problem. I'd also done a lot of agency work. I'm a designer, a motion designer, kind of by trade, I guess you could say. And so kind of the transition from doing agency work and creative work, doing commercials and things like that into foreplay was really when I built my first e-commerce store. It was kind of just a side thing that I was doing. But we would do this project, or sorry, this meeting every Friday where I would get our whole team to come with a bunch of new ad ideas. My guys come every Friday, new ad ideas from competitors or things like that, and we would just do this call, and everybody would come with drive links or spreadsheet or broken ad library links. And by the time Monday came around, all of those ad ideas either got lost in Slack and we didn't actually kind of push it into our workflow as kind of a pointless meeting. And so I thought, oh, it'd be really cool if we could just have a Pinterest of all of our ad inspiration sort of in one place that we could use in our workflow. And so I just started, building tools. We sold the e-commerce brand, shut down the agency, and kind of went all in on this idea. And since then, it's evolved into being a lot more than just, a little tool where you can pin ads. We've built the largest community ad library in the entire world of over 5 million ads now saved by all of our users. We have an AI script writer and a bunch of other tools. So it's really turned into something special. But it all started with just I had this meeting that was kind of pretty laborious and kind of useless. But I thought the idea of ad inspiration, building it into your workflow is important. And so, yeah.
It always starts from a real use case and a real pain point, and that's when you actually develop, I guess, products that work. I think for myself, because I have a background in advertising and marketing, and I've done both brand campaigns as well as performance-driven campaigns. So I know how important it is to have a repository of your key competitors' ads as well as your own top performing ads. And that's how you know how you can evolve. Because ads, playing with ads is almost like a game, right? You can't play alone. You got to see how your ad performs in response to everyone else's out there. So I think a tool like yours, when I first saw it, I was like, whoa, this is something I really need, man. I need it, and I have saved a lot of my own personal collection in it as well. So that's pretty cool. And I wanted to ask also, how did you come up with the name Foreplay? Because it's really fun, really cheeky, and of course something that people will be like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the name actually started with the agency. So the agency we were running was called Foreplay. The way that I came up with the name was, well, one, I was reading a book called Losing My Virginity from Richard Branson at the same time that I was trying to think of a name for Foreplay or for the agency. And in that book, he outlines kind of now when you say Virgin Mobile, Virgin Galactic, you know exactly what it is. It's turned into its own kind of meaning. But at the time, he was there was a lot of people that told me it was a bad idea. And he just outlined the feelings he had having a lot of conviction in something that would be a taboo name, and how everybody said it was a bad idea, but then it kind of just transitioned to the best thing he had ever done. And so I think I was heavily influenced just by reading this book at the time. And so when I was, naming the agency, I had a bunch of different ideas. I was I kind of want it to be provocative. I kind of want it to be fun. I think, people take themselves too seriously. And so I was thinking of okay, what is advertising? What is marketing? And I was oh, it's kind of just foreplay with your customer, right? It's all of these kind of touch points and things like that happen before the purchase. And I was okay, that's perfect. So one word, I wanted a one-word name. I wanted it to be taboo and mildly sexual, saying that's just widely taboo amongst most, cultures. And so that's how we came up with the name.
Yeah, I think you managed to check all your boxes. Great. But yeah, I think it's super memorable. And I think for me, it's in advertising, we like to tease our audience before they convert and make them want it, but they're not going to buy it yet until they see one more of our ads. So that was
Yeah.
also what I resonated and related to. But I think in this session, right, I would love to dive into the journey of building foreplay. I know it's not easy to start something and it's not easy to bootstrap something. So can you tell us more about that journey and how has it been for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think like bootstrapping is like one of the most beautiful constraints you can ever have when building a software company. There's 100% industries and companies that don't align themselves with bootstrapping, and I don't think that mine is one of them. Essentially, the journey was is like I was always kind of like a designer, so I could do all of the product design myself. I was the user, I had the problem myself, so I knew exactly what the tool needed to look like and feel like to a certain degree. Obviously, the customer feedback comes into play there. But essentially, I just like started like playing around inside of Figma, designing out the software like the way that I would want it. I built like I knew how to use Webflow, so I built like a full like UI that I could click through and start feeling it before I built any of the back end. And then I just found, like a freelancer on Upwork to build like the first version of the product. From there, obviously bringing on team members and kind of our first developer was definitely like a massive sort of like leap forward. And, since then, the team has grown and we're able to build more. But, I really like bootstrapping. I think it's like, it does two things. One, it gives you like a lot of constraints, and so you're creative and you build the most important things, and so you don't get distracted. And then also it just ensures that you're building like a viable and sustainable business from the beginning.
Yeah.
There's these stories of like software companies that raise these big rounds, and by the end of it, you end up upside down on like valuation or anything like that. And if I'm going to spend my life doing anything, I still want it to be like a win for like me and like everybody involved. And I think bootstrapping is like the best way to do that if you can.
And what are the challenges of doing so? Have you ever reached a point where you are thinking like, should I start raising, or for now it's all good?
I think you always have that thought in the back of your head. And I think it happens mostly when you see peers raising, or, potentially we've had competitors pop up and they raise all this money, like, oh, that's what I should be doing. But I think what I usually try to like center in on in terms of like staying convicted in my beliefs is like, one, what we're doing is working. And so why change based on what someone else is doing that might not be working and probably isn't working? In terms of like the challenges that come up, I mean, like cash constraints are a challenge, but with like a fiscally responsible business, those constraints will always be there anyway. Unless you're someone like Apple with like billions of dollars on like their balance sheet and like their actual problem is like where to spend money, they're just like normal problems of business, but I think they're good problems to have. And the earlier you can solve your CAC, the earlier you can solve your LTV in like an actual sustainable way, just like the better actual business that you build. And like I said, I think the creative constraints of having resource constraints are usually good as long as you're not in like a highly competitive industry or an industry where you need like a ton of infrastructure or something where potentially you need to build hardware or something like that. So if you can bootstrap, I think you should try your absolute best to. And yeah, like I'm kind of fully convicted in the belief that we're in a safe bootstrap now.
You know what I loved about what you just said? You used the word creative constraint a couple of times, which is amazing because it's not something that most people would use. If your background is in advertising, or you're a marketer, or you're a creative, then you tend to have that kind of mindset of like, how do I solve a certain problem with certain limitations, given what I know about my company, my audience, and the resources that I have to still make an ad work. And I think when you use that phrase, it's also something that it's like a way of thinking. How do you go lean and mean and still get the results that you're looking for? I think that's the beautiful part about solving problems from a creative point of view. But was it hard for you to transit from a creative to a founder? Like, what were the key differences for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still personally on that journey. I don't think we're ever all completely there. Most founders start as something else, and there's this part of them that feels super aligned. Like for me, when I can just design our product, that feels like super flow and easy, but then team building or like things like that can be hard. I kind of just look at each one of those phases as kind of levels to unlock in a video game. And so even though my competency is super high and I might be drawn to all this work, there's times in which the game that you're playing requires you to level up different skills. And so I just try to look at it. I'm a video game character, and to complete the next level, I need to level up X skill. And then that just allows me to then go back to the thing I love doing, or the thing that feels super natural, but at a much higher scale. And so it's definitely hard, right? I think we all get distracted, or we get, we're naturally drawn into areas that maybe we shouldn't be working on, but we like to work on. But I don't try to think about it too much. At the end of the day, this isn't like super tactical, but like I always like to optimize for like energy levels personally. So as much as possible, like I want to spend most of my time working on things where my energy is the highest. But again, like I said, there's certain times where you need to do those like personally energy draining things like operations, administrative stuff. And so it's just like a balance.
Yeah. And for yourself, in terms of you used to be a creative, you still get to do a lot of creative work in your new role as a founder, or do you feel like your responsibilities have entirely shifted?
I don't think they've entirely shifted, luckily. Right now I've done all of our design work up until now, but we're getting to a point where even if I was just doing the design work and nothing else, it's probably more than I can handle. And so we're like hiring a designer. I think the actual harder part than transitioning my roles is replacing myself in the places that I feel the most competent, because I'm incredibly emotionally attached to those types of things. And so it's not that it's harder to find someone that's quote unquote better than me. It's like dealing with the uncomfortable feelings of maybe they do stuff differently than the way that I do, and that could be better, but like leaving your ego at the door and like, with the mission of just like growing the company. But I mean, like I said, I think for myself, I'm lucky. I would say like my primary role right now is to figure out where the product is going and then recruit the team to help me facilitate that. And I'm like happy that I can be as hands-on as possible with the product design. Like I often think with other founders that don't have like product design knowledge or anything like that, I'm like, wow, doing this just with someone where you actually don't know how to be hands-on, I think would be incredibly hard. So if anything, I'm actually kind of like grateful for the background, just because it makes going from idea to like MVP a lot easier.
Yeah, especially if you have domain and subject expertise, then you see that as the strength, because then it allows you to spend so much less time trying to learn a new skill to solve a new problem. But then again, I'm sure there are many other areas you have to learn and grow in, as I have had to in my own journey. But I'm also curious to ask you, what was your first 100 customers like? Was it hard to acquire them, and how did you get them on board?
Yeah, so try to think back. So the first 10 was very easy. It was like people that I knew, friends and things like that. 10 to 50 was honestly like a bunch of like surprising learnings. One, they came from industries in which I was not expecting. It actually wasn't like D2C brands. We had these like large companies like Xerox and like these random marketers that just found the tool out in the wild, and they started becoming some of our largest customers. Like the first 100 customers was like a lot of messaging people, but then like a lot of just like people finding it out in the world. Like luckily we had this very burning pain point of, saving ads from Facebook ad library. It was a platform people were already using. And so we were like an adjacent solution to something people were already doing. And so it came from a bunch of places. Like there wasn't one thing. And word of mouth and like sharing has always been like a very massive part to like our growth. Have that kind of built into the product with the nature of using it is you're saving to share with someone else. And so that's been helpful as well.
Got it. So would you say that your biggest growth lever would be like word of mouth, or like is there a specific system that you've built out to grow for Play?
Well, saying your biggest, so I think saying your biggest growth channel is word of mouth doesn't actually get to like the root of like what it is. I think the biggest growth channel is building a good product. So like word of mouth is just a side effect of having a really great product. And so I think that's honestly like our biggest growth channel. We've aligned ourselves with like, we were lucky that really early on we had a bunch of customers that had influence. They just like natively came in and started using the tool. And so like we got a bunch of boost from that. But yeah, I mean, I actually think our biggest growth channel is just building good product, always innovating, and then all of the other kind of like pieces, the opportunities to go and speak at events or like everything like that all comes from, just building good product that people actually use.
Got it. And how big would you say is building community an important lever for you? Because I've seen that you guys are pretty active on LinkedIn, on YouTube. You do fireside chats and you're pushing out really good content. So is that something that you're actively investing into as well?
Yeah, so I'll admit that I don't think we were actually great at building community. I think our community was great at building community, or like we were tapped into communities that were really good. I don't think that we can take credit for like facilitating all of that, but we're trying to add, meaningful drops to the bucket of the communities that we're already in and people have kind of invited us into. And so you mentioned the fireside chats. That's been something that we've been focused on this year. I've always like looked up to like Brian Chesky, like the founder of Airbnb, and like the way that he does product launches, which kind of informed the way that we do product launches, kind of like having me like actually explain the features to people and walk through them. But I mean, I want to invest more in community, actually. I think we're doing a decent job right now. We're doing more than nothing, but we could definitely do a lot better.
Yeah, increasingly, at least from what I've been seeing, the human to human kind of connection or that personal branding or building a community seems to be, I think there seems to be a lot of potential there. And brands are slowly utilizing it, but not every brand is fully maximizing the power of it. And I think sometimes from what I've seen, your community can also be your biggest advocates. And when somebody sells your product, it's so much better than you try to sell it yourself. Like somebody says,
Absolutely.
you're great. So then everyone else will be like, he is great or she is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But was it kind of hard for you to find product market fit? Do you already know from day zero that yes, this is a pain point I need to solve, or was it something you had to validate along the way?
So I think product market fit is a lot more nuanced than people think. We had like problem market fit from day one because I had the problem, all my friends had the problem, we had people randomly finding it and using it. And so we had problem market fit. Problem market fit, and then the solution, which we solved it from day one, is like significantly different than where the product is today. And so I think to actually get to like true product market fit, you need to work from problem market fit. And then there's like a lot of nuances to software along, like there's some software that are very simple. So you input one thing and exports something else, and like that solves your problem. With our tool, people are using it day to day in their lives. And so there's like a million different edge cases and a million different ways people are using the tool. And so I don't think that we achieved product market fit until, I mean, and we haven't like solved for all of those, right? Like maybe we solve for, at most right now, like in terms of our customers' problems, we probably solved 30% of them, like maybe 30%, right? And so I don't know at what percentage of those problems we were solving that I felt product market fit, but you know, and I also think that like product market fit, an aspect of it is also sort of growth or marketing or go-to-market fit, right? So yeah, like I don't know if it was part, like, like I said, we were starting from problem market fit, and so that was really helpful. I knew that the problem existed, but quote unquote finding product market fit, I think we're still on that journey. But I mean, I think for by most standards, like we've achieved it, right? Where, you know, we get emails all the time where people, this is the best tool. I think I don't know what my life was like before this tool.
Yeah.
And so I think those types of messages are when you're like, okay, you know, people would be incredibly sad if we like disappeared, right?
Yeah, I think that is the one question that we ask. How sad would you be if this company failed to exist? And then that's how you sort of know how interested people are. But I think those are really interesting insights, because a lot of founders that I work with, sometimes we think that there is a product market fit and then they're already funded. But then when you go to market, you realize that something is more of a vitamin and less of a painkiller. And of course, you try to use like ads and ways to convince them that this is a painkiller. But sometimes, like what you said, the product has to sell, and it has to be a good product that's solving an actual pain point for a real customer for it to really scale. But now that we talk about like scaling, right? I know you have also integrated some AI functions and tools, and of course, me being an AI enthusiast and copywriter, I would love to know like your roadmap for, you know, foreplay regarding AI and how you see it evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think the conversation around AI has like changed so much in the last 12 months. And so like anything I say here is probably gonna become outdated in like the next 2 months.
Or 2 days.
What our roadmap looks like, you know, I think our first couple AI tools were decent. They were like, you know, aligned with like a lot of the other stuff that was kind of being put out. The product that we're working on right now, I think is a lot more like human centric and like creative strategist centric product that isn't just put in something, get something out, but it's actually like hand holding along the way with like copywriters and creative strategists. And so we're rebuilding like our entire AI scriptwriter to be a more iterative approach where people can have their hand in the process along the way and really like, you know, shape the way that, you know, the end product is going to look, while AI is taking out a lot of the laborious work, or at least building on ideas that they actually have. And so that's where the roadmap looks like. We're set to launch version 3.0 of the platform in the middle of Q2, end of Q2 of this year. And so we're incredibly excited about that. Part of that will be, you know, AI products. Part of it will be, you know, standard SaaS, like what people know us for right now. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that there's also, you know, an opportunity to get into the generative space, like with images and videos. But I also like have a belief that when I think about creative people, I think we have two different types of customers. Like we have like creative people and we have like the marketers. I think we're serving the marketers pretty well. I think we're serving the creative people really well. But that creative and like marketers want like end to end, right? Like they just want like their problem solved. They just want to like and then go and drive, traffic and growth and stuff like that. The creative people, I think they're always going to be using a ton of different tools based on like what the vision of the outcome is going to be. And so the way that I actually look about our roadmap, and I haven't completely figured this out yet, before AI, like a designer would use like Illustrator and Photoshop and, a little bit of After Effects to like achieve this result. And so I think with the AI tools, that is also going to exist, right? And so I would like our tool to just be an enabler of creatives that are using like a massive tool set from people that are doing, very specific things very, very well, rather than trying to bundle it all up and create like a lukewarm ad, because we did, it did every aspect of it. I would really just like to enable the creative people to use the tools that they're using that are evolving rapidly, and then we just help them, do their work a lot better and allow them to spend more time on the creative work.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you on that, because I have both like the marketing expertise and also I'm a creative at heart. So if I'm a marketer, all I want to do is have a system and a process that produces results. But as a creative, I want the freedom to play. I want to explore. I want to think of big ideas. I don't want AI to tell me what to do. I want that autonomy. I think that's really the interesting thing, right? Because AI can be used in so many ways. One, to systematize things and make it a lot more productive. But the other way is maybe for it to be a co-pilot or a co-creative or an enabler. I think that is actually the future of where advertising is going to be. And it's already, transforming a lot. And I think we will see a lot more brands embracing AI and embracing that change. And maybe one last question for you is, and this could be an interesting one, I always like to ask, like, what is your why? Do you have one? Why do you wake up every day, working on something like this? What is that final goal of yours?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like an ever like evolving thing depending on like what season of my life I'm in. I mean, I always wanted to build a software company from when I was like super young, like, software founders and technology founders were like who I looked up to. And so I think, my why is like, I really love the process of building delightful products. I also think that like beautiful advertising like makes the world a better place. So advertising isn't ever going to go away. And I think a lot of people look at it as an interruption to their daily life. And so I think if, we can help make advertising better, then, there is like a trickle down effect of like, beautiful advertising makes a beautiful world. The beautiful world makes happier people. I think that's a little bit more like esoteric than I usually think day to day, but that's kind of like a belief that I do have. And, like the end goal is to like build like a really big company that a lot of creative people use. And so we can get more of those messages, people being like, I don't know how I did my job before this tool. Like personally, when I was doing a lot of motion design work, that tool for me was frame.io. It was like I would always get email, threads of like time codes, and it was like really annoying. And I found frame.io and it just like made my life a little bit better. And I had like a ton of admiration for that tool. And I like been lucky enough to become friends with the founders of frame.io who had like an amazing outcome. And so the end goal is to, actually just have like a similar outcome where we enable creative people. They like their job a little bit more. They feel like they have more time to do creative work. And yeah.
Thank you for that. And as a creative, I resonate with that. I love the vision, and I really enjoyed myself, chatting with you and also learning more about the platform. So if people want to learn more about your company or yourself, where should they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm pretty active on both Twitter and LinkedIn. Just Zachary Murray on LinkedIn, foreplay Zach on Twitter. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM, or if you're building anything, I always like talking to other founders. Or if you're looking to like join our team, if you think you have something to offer, we're always hiring for the right people. And so, yeah, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to chat.
If you think you're a better designer than Zach, send him your
Yes.
resume. And with that,
Please.
thank you so much, Zach, for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good one.